My Racing Moment on Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit HRI.ie.
Our guest this week, though, does actually have an interest, particularly in one of those. Master McShee is running with a decent chance and a brilliant story behind it. And I'm delighted to say Paddy Corkery is with us live. Paddy, in glorious Technicolor yourself, how are you?
Good, George. Thanks for having me.
We're very excited to hear your backstory. Is it true you only got into racing in your 40s?
Yeah, I suppose I started hunting in my 40s. I could be late 30s or 40s. But I was always involved in some kind of sport. I nearly played hurling till I was 50. So I kept that sport all the time and I always enjoyed sport.
It's interesting to, like... We'll get into your profession and all that kind of stuff in a moment, but your connection with racing seems to have been kind of tangential enough. Or you weren't born into a racing family or anything, were you?
No, not really. No. I suppose hunting was my first interest with horses, and I liked horses, and I used to ride them out. And I said, you know what, I might get a race horse and see how we get on. And I did that, and I got the bug for it really, and I stayed at it then, you know. And
so when you said get a horse, were you intending to be a trainer from the get-go? Was that like, I'll get a horse and train it and see if we can enter it in races?
Well, I've often said this about horse racing, and I say it about a lot of things, and I used to find I like to be hands-on, and I found with horses to be like buying a set of golf clubs and giving it to someone else to play with them. You know, I just wanted to be hands-on, and I liked that job, and I liked to be part of it, you know.
Right. So, did you know what you were doing when you went to buy your first horse? Like, were you kind of had enough of an understanding of how the industry worked, or did you just kind of rock up one day and go, geez, how does this actually work?
Not really, I suppose. You know, I was keeping an eye on the guys that were doing the job properly, and I kind of started at it myself, made plenty of mistakes, and learned to have them, maybe, you know. Right.
And how many, when you started out, how many did you have at the beginning?
Just one.
Right. Okay, yeah. So it's all the eggs in this one basket then?
Well, at the start, yeah, I was just have one horse that time, and I used to ride him out myself. And, you know, you learn about how to get him fit and how to get him fresh and how to keep him right, and, you know.
We've been talking about that specific aspect of it with every trainer we have on. And that seems to be the magic part of it, is knowing when the horse is ready to race and knowing when you have to ease off because you're doing too much. So it's obviously trial and error from your perspective with just the one horse.
Well, very much so on the start, but as you get on with horses, you kind of learn their personality. And every horse has a different personality, and they probably tell you a lot by how much they eat and when they eat and when they're rolling and all that kind of stuff, and they're happy when they're doing that, you know. Yeah.
So, were you successful with your first horse?
He won a pint.
Right. Great.
But I couldn't get him to eat, and I tried every trick in the book, but he just wouldn't eat. And maybe my second horse then, it was a mare that I bought off of Tom McCarthy, was very successful. Well, she was ran under other people's names, but I did most of the work myself, you know. Right.
Very good. And so she obviously won races for you, did she?
She won 7 times and she was placed 14.
Wow. Holy moly. You must be thinking, this is great. I've got this cracked.
I've cracked it. And the other thing, of course, was, you know, it's not alone. It's about luck. And every aspect of a horse is luck and a gamble. And if you have the luck and you're lucky, it just pays off, you know.
Well, obviously, my favourite story is I've actually completely butchered it now, but which of the golfers was the luckier? The more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah. But, you know, luck goes a certain amount, but you must be able to tick the boxes as well.
And look, the other thing that we always talk about with trainers is knowing which races to enter your horse into. That takes... You got to place them in the right company to make sure that they're up against a field that they can win in. How did you acquire that skill?
Well, you get out the calendars and then the night go by that I don't look at this race might suit the horse or that race might suit the horse, and I look at the ratings and figure it out and just say, you know.
So you had the pointer first, and then you had the mare that was very successful. At any point, are you thinking I might add a few more horses to this, or is one?
Well, I've had a few in between now.
Right. Okay.
And you know, the biggest problem with a horse is maybe. The word maybe is a huge thing with a horse, and you get a horse there, you get him ready, and you run him, and then you say, he runs a stinker, and you say, maybe I should run him in longer distance. Then maybe I should run him in better ground. Then maybe I should put him over fences. Maybe I should put him over hurdles. And after about 20 runs, you say to yourself, maybe the second is useless.
You sound like you'd be good dealing with syndicates anyway.
Well, I suppose, you see, the biggest thing about when you're training for yourself, if you're not honest with yourself and get rid of a horse, that's not showing enough. That's kind of the secret. If you think you have a horse that's good enough, you know, I had another horse there now called Chancet, and he was a superstar at home. But the day he went racing, I think he'd prefer being in the pub because he never wanted to run.
It's mad, Paddy, the amount of horses are like that. You hear time again, Morning Glory, just whatever it is, goes racing, doesn't do it.
Well, you know, it's something similar. I trained teams underage, and you go down there to the local field and you're training under 16 or a mile, and you say, I can't wait to see this guy playing in the championship. And the day of the championship, you can't find him. You just don't want to know, you know. And it's the same with horses. The day it gets a little bit tough, they mightn't want to know.
Master McShee isn't like that anyway.
No, and I suppose the other thing with me is, you know, and I said this to Jane Mangan the other day, the other thing with me is he gets such a variety. If they're good, they get a real variety, because maybe Monday I might go to the beach. Tuesday I'd probably go to Brian Hallen's, it's a local gallop. Wednesday I'd go to Cormore. Maybe Thursday I'd go to Kiley's cross jumping. I might go to Mihal Griffin's. And, you know, I said to Jane, when I put the horse into the box, he don't know where he's going. And some days maybe I don't either. You know?
Because it's funny, like I've asked, I think I asked Patrick Mullins one day, what's the secret to Willie's success? And he said routine. And I just didn't stick right with me, because like I would have thought horses kind of after a while they do get fed up if they're doing the same thing the whole time as well.
Well, I suppose, you see, you can do what I'm doing but still have routine. So routine means you go to the beach at 9 o'clock. Routine means you go jumping at 9 o'clock. You feed them at 1 o'clock. You know what I mean? So it is still routine, but it's variety.
The other thing, the significant difference is the numbers. You can decide what you're going to do on a whim. Am I right in saying that Master McShee is the only horse you have in the yard at the moment? No,
I have two more. Well, I have 3 or 4 more, but I have 3 in training, Master McShee and 2 younger stock.
Okay. And you're flexible enough with those numbers that you can decide on a whim. Okay, well, sure, today we'll go to the beach.
Well, no, to be honest, I figure out in my mind, we'll say, I'm going to go here Monday, here Tuesday, here Wednesday.
Right.
So I kind of plan out the week before I do anything. You know?
Yeah, fair enough. And maybe that's the other thing, is that the gift of knowing the horse so intimately that you can ease off, or you can go a bit harder if you need to.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. And to be honest, Jimmy Maloney, we'll call him my works rider, and you know, he'd say he's blowing a bit half today and I do a little bit more, and maybe he's right, I do a bit less, and you know.
The story, like I love the story of the individual horse and the background to him. So like when he made his debut 2nd of March 2020, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of Paddy Corkery, certainly didn't hear of Master McShee. He was 50-1 running an 11 horse race at Leopardstown. Now he's already a 6-year-old. So what happened before all of that?
He had a lot of issues and a lot of problems, and Tom McCarthy and John Sheehan had him, and they contacted me one day and they said they had a horse there that had plenty of problems, and I just bought him off him, and I solved a lot of the problems really. He had wind problems and his leg used to swell up and different things, and you know, so.
If he had a wind problem, what was your kind of if you hear a horse has a wind issue, you'd run a mile in terms of owning them or whatever, but what was your kind of prognosis? Or
well, I took him to a vet and he did him for the wind.
Can I just
he said he'd be successful.
Can I go back to the bit where the lads contacted you, and because they obviously, you must have a track record of taking horses that have problems.
I just have a track record of taking problems.
We'll get to that in the second half of the show. Getting back to the horse now.
No, I'm only joking. No, look, I mean, they told me they had a horse there, and I didn't really ask them what they were doing from before that. So,
But did they know they weren't selling you a dud, obviously?
I'd say they thought they were selling me though.
They weren't actually trying to oversell him either.
No, in fairness, he didn't cost me a fortune. And Tom and John Sheehan, I am very friendly with both of them. And we had a meal the night after he won. And the first man that ever contacted me was John Sheehan anytime he won, you know.
Fair enough. And I guess, though, you obviously are comfortable enough taking horses that don't have, I suppose, as a small trainer, as we're talking about here, it's a very small operation. You have to take risks, and you have to kind of look for a bit of value where other people might have decided, oh, look, we're fed up with this now.
Well, I suppose, the big thing about this, and, people that listening, and I got a text there from someone after Master Mac won, and they said it's nice to see a horse that didn't cost over 200,000 win a Grade 1. And when they'll go down to the staff next Sunday above in Leopardstown, any of the other fellas are going to turn to Master McShee and say, we cost more than you.
This is the thing as well, because we spoke to Ross Sullivan about this. The National Hunt game is kind of, it's a bit like professional football in the sense now, like Paddy, that the Man City will basically win because they have the money, and it's really, really rare for a story like Master McShee to happen, even in the kind of vagaries of jumps racing now, because all the good horses are gone before they're even, they're still minors effectively.
Yeah, well, I suppose some of the people that have a good horse and they win a pint, they get a ball of money and they sell them. That's really what it is.
Did he look so when you got his various problems sorted out, didn't you work him, were you thinking, oh wow, there's something here?
It probably took me nearly a year and a half or more to kind of come up with that conclusion,
Wow.
But you must look at that. I have nothing to base him on. I have no yardsticks, and
Who'd ride him out then?
I ride him out myself.
So you have to say, Paddy, what do you make of this lad? I'm not sure, Paddy. What do you think of him? And then you talk to yourself, and because you're a trainer, man, everything going.
Well, I talk to myself a lot, but not all the time. But when I put Jimmy Maloney up on him, Jimmy is an ex-jockey.
Right.
And Jimmy he's the works rider as such, and he'd have a good idea of how good or bad they're not,
So he goes to the first bumper behind Run for Oscar, who's a good horse. Runs okay. Were you happy with the first run?
I blame myself a little bit because I was starved for a run and I kind of had him overcooked a bit.
Left him off then till November, and I actually remember the race well because Appreciated was an unbelievably short price, and you were basically leading for much of the race, and you pulled 28 lengths clear of third.
That's right, yeah.
What was the thought? If ever you're happy in defeat, that must be it. Oh,
there's no doubt that we knew that day after that run that we had something kind of serious enough. No, we kind of thought going to it now that he'd have a chance. Well, we had a good few quid in him to be second.
Really?
Yeah, but the bookies were closed, so we were backing online.
All right, that'll do. You still get paid?
Oh, we got paid, yeah.
So then he went to Cork, and I remember thinking if this fellow were trained by a more recognised trainer, he'd be about 1 to 5 on that form. He was sent off 6 to 5, and probably a lot bigger price earlier, and won by 8.5 lengths.
That's right, yeah. You see, I suppose the other thing is, and it'll probably be the same Sunday in Leopardstown. I mean, you're taking on professional trainers. You're taking on people with horses that have been bought for 200,000 and 300,000 and 400,000. And you must respect those people. They put a lot of work into it, and they put a lot of time into it, and I have no disrespect whatsoever for those. But the one thing about, we say the favourite is trained by the top trainer in the country, but we're not going to tell Master McShee that. He won't know that. And
after the Leopardstown win, then I vaguely recall that there was plenty of chat. This horse is worth a good bit of money. And
when is this? Sorry,
this is over a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So he beat C Ducker, who's obviously that's really solid form at Leopardstown, a handicap hurdle, which brought his mark up to 143. But I presume at that stage, the dream could have basically ended for you anyway, when you could have just cashed in.
Yeah, but I kind of made it clear the day he won in Cork. Kevin O'Ryan asked me, is he for sale? And I said no. And Brian Gleeson asked me the same story, and I said no. So you can't just buy something that's not for sale.
Well, let me ask you about that. Did you know you were going to say no when you were asked it, or was it a surprise to yourself as well?
You know, I don't do too much thinking about what I'm going to say. That's a big problem with me.
I don't think it's a problem at all, Paddy. But do you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't know the answer to a question until somebody actually says it. And you're like, geez, I said no, flat out. I was like, okay, I've talked myself into that position now. Was there a bit of that? Or you're like, I have something here, I want to keep it?
I'm spontaneous. I just didn't have my mind made up what I was going to do. But, you know, the other thing I look at is, you know, the happiness and the enjoyment. And you can go into any shop in the world and any of them don't sell happiness or enjoyment. You know, so like that in itself, it can't be bought. And like you sell them, you get a ball of money from them. Well, do you go looking for another one, spend it all, or do you keep what you have?
Well, I've just started watching Succession, and like money doesn't necessarily bring you happiness anyway. Like this,
Like the richest man in Ireland is not necessarily the happiest man in Ireland.
Not at all, not at all. And like it's just that story behind it. And the beauty of having a horse like that is the race itself doesn't take very long, but it's just there's so much build up to everything, and there's so much fun having him around, I suppose.
That's right. Well, look, I've said this to a fellow the other day. You know, the win in Limerick, I reckon, put 10 years onto my life. And the celebrations took 2 off it, so I'm up 8.
Okay, well look,
It could be 6 after Leopardstown, but anyway.
My Racing Moment is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow Horse Racing Ireland on social media.
My Racing Moment on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.